Which runner has the best movement? Let's talk about that. Or rather, what each shell brings to the table when it comes to movement, their playstyles, and when or why you'd want to run each shell. Vandal, Thief, and Destroyer are the three shells with movement as a part of their kit, be it a passive or prime/tactical ability. Assassin also has some movement with his passive nosedive. It's actually really good, but we won't be talking about that today. Ignoring any additional implants or mods, Thief has a tactical grapple hook. Destroyer has a trait with faster sprint and a trait called Thruster, which boosts you in any direction. Vandal has a double jump trait and a trait with an enhanced slide, as well as a prime or ult that allows for this to be used more frequently. Each of these abilities differ greatly and can be adjusted or enhanced further with additional items and upgrades in game. I'll briefly talk about said upgrades as well, since they open up each shell a little bit more, but generally I'll be talking about just the base kits. So when and why would you use each shell for their mobility? Let's start with Thief. Thief's grapple is her tactical ability, meaning her movement is tied to a cooldown instead of the heat meter, which I'll get into later with the other two. So running anything that reduces tactical cooldown will be very beneficial to Thief. The grapple can grant a ton of momentum, as well as massive advantages in height or closing the gap. This grapple offers arguably the most variety in terms of what you can do with it, since you're not limited to one direction. Thief is fantastic at flanking, since there's so much room for improv. Hook to high ground, hook around a building to push a running enemy, or to retreat and heal. Get a vantage point from basically anywhere. There's so many little crates and things to climb on that can be easily bypassed while gaining momentum from the hook. Or maybe a roof that you can jump up onto, or a window you can go through. One of the cons is that you're limited in how often you can use the grapple, since you have to wait another 30-40 seconds for the grapple to come back, since it's a tactical instead of a trait. Overall, I think Thief is both the most free and the most limited of the three, ironically enough. And I think it's mainly due to the other two's movements being tied to heat instead of a cooldown. Destroyer's movement abilities are both tied to the heat meter, meaning if you're smart about heat management, you can strategically use them often enough to overwhelm anyone. His thrusters plus boost offer some of the quickest beeline movement out there, and pairing it with your shield means you can W key from 50 meters out and close in with a shotgun. Destroyer's thrusters can be used to push an enemy in any specific direction, so it's one of the best for closing gaps. Destroyer is the shell you want to be if you want to impose fear on your enemies by simply running them down. Thrusting with shield and finishing with a boost towards the enemy has to be some of the most fun I've had in the game, and those two movement abilities combined with the shield offer the closest thing you'll get to a Titan. Plus his ult is awesome. Vandal definitely has the highest skill ceiling for movement, and arguably in the game. Though some beginners might be able to use the shell's abilities enough to get away or maybe make a cool play, it takes a while to master the shell and pair everything together harmoniously. But when done well, Vandal is probably the most offense-oriented shell in the game. Though this is a mobility video, it's hard not to bring up the other aspects of the shells, as the rest of the kit makes up the playstyle for the shell. The reason I bring this up is Thief has movement, but also has a lot of intel, with the visor and the drone. Destroyer also has movement, and quite aggressive movement too, and even has some offensive power with his ult, and the shield plays very heavily into that more rugged, physical dominant style of performance. Whereas Vandal is pure offense, both in movement and power, like a true DPS class. Her ability is a damage cannon that blasts people away. The slide is incredibly fast and covers a huge distance, and the double jump allows for multi-directional movement and flanking. Like Destroyer, her abilities are based on heat, and since she has the highest base heat capacity, and her ult reduces your heat, you can pair all of the movement together as well as running quicker, leading to some of the hyper-aggressive gameplay that you've seen in some of these clips. This shell's role is definitely playmaker, whether it's flanking or popping in and out, pushing aggressively after a pick. Like Thief, this class offers a ton of variety in terms of where you can go and how fast you can get there, with a ton of freedom. But what makes Vandal stronger in this regard is the frequency at which you can do these movement abilities, since her abilities are tied to heat. and her ult lets you use these abilities for less heat. I'd say this is probably the hardest shell to master, and most can easily fuck up a fight because they're not used to Vandal entirely. The cool thing is, each one has a lot to offer, and can change map to map, or dependent on the items you get in game. For example, there's a core for Vandal that lets you jump twice, as well as a core that pushes you forward on jump, almost like the Destroyer boost. There's also one that lets you use the arm cannon on yourself to blast yourself away and not take damage. Thief has a core that, when your backpack is full, your slide distance and sprint speed is a lot greater, and your slide is almost as far as Vandal's. But when you ready your weapon, it comes out immediately in comparison to Vandal, who it takes a little bit longer. Destroyer has a core that generates less heat when near people, which further allows you to push enemies, and one where the Riot Barricade doesn't drain when using the tactical sprint. So I wouldn't really say one shell is outright the best for mobility. It's more so whatever suits your playstyle, or what you're in the mood for. I probably play Thief the most of the three, but definitely like switching to the other two and sticking with them for quite a while. Wastelander to my head, though, I'd probably say Vandal is technically the most mobile, as that's kind of her niche, as mentioned, whereas the others have other specialties. But that doesn't mean she's the right pick every time. I mean, we all have our own preferences, right? That's why you'll never catch me on Recon. If I really want to use Intel, I'll just use Thief.